Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, Sow, Grow, Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of Sow, Grow, Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Are you a nonprofit professional who's feeling overwhelmed and burnt out? Well, welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast. I am your host, Haley Cooper. On this podcast, we will share stories of leadership, courage, and empathy that'll help you learn to take care of yourself, your staff, organization, and community. You will hear from nonprofit leaders who have been in your shoes and have learned best practices to raise more revenue and make a greater impact. Let's thrive together. Hello, everyone. This is Haley Cooper, and I am a certified fundraising executive, nonprofit leader, and nonprofit burnout survivor. And I'm so excited today because I have Bekah on here with me, and I met her over, I think, LinkedIn, where I do all my networking, and the social media can be such a beautiful place to meet people that are influencers and making such a collective change and really trying to change the world. And this is what I love for Bekah. A little bit about her. After a decade of working in the community as a restorative and transformative justice facilitator and a few years living in Guatemala, Bekah became a nonprofit dropout, which I love that term, nonprofit dropout, and founded the Interdependence Incubator with the intention to lovingly gather white women who crave healing and create space for us to practice freedom. She envisions an interdependent world where everybody, and I mean everybody, is free because we've intentionally healed at scale through somatic practice of our values. Find her on LinkedIn talking about all things culture, healing, and change at the personal, interpersonal, and systemic levels. So welcome, Bekah. And I know this was a brief bio, but why don't you tell me a little bit more about your journey of becoming a nonprofit dropout and how you got here today?
Yeah, thanks so much, Haley, for that introduction. And yeah, there's so much in it. There's so much in the journey that I've made. I think I started out as a young, person wanting to save the world and thinking that the best way for me to do that would be to go to law school and do systems change work and all of those things. And then I left Maine for college and I was like, oh, actually, that saving the world thing, not so great. Not such a great way to look at the thing that we're trying to do here, and really have spent basically the time ever since then trying to unlearn and decolonize and reframe and really step into interdependence and solidarity and really practicing a way of belonging with everybody else, every other body on the planet. And that journey has been hard and isolating at times. I think unnecessarily isolating. I think sometimes unnecessarily challenging. I could have done things differently if I had known other things. But, like Maya Angelou always said, when you know better, you do better. So the more I knew, the better I did. But yeah, I mean, while I started college in Florida, I learned a lot, sort of opened my eyes to the world outside of Southern Maine, where I grew up. And then I transferred to a college in New York City, where I was the only white person in many of my classes. And that was the first time that I had experienced anything like that. And it really just a number of other things that I experienced at that college experience and when I was at university sort of made me feel like the only way to make up for the fact that I was born into white privilege and that I was born as a white cisgendered person was to work as hard as I can all the time to make the world a better place. Like do whatever I could at the cost of my own wellness, of my own sanity, of my own well-being. I mean, I just was like, I don't deserve to feel good because I'm a white woman. And unlearning that, well, that led me to a nervous breakdown, basically, where I all of a sudden was unable to do the basic things. Like I couldn't bike over a bridge. I couldn't take the subway. I couldn't, like, so many things that I just like couldn't do anymore because I was just consumed by anxiety that I'd never experienced before. And in recovering from that, I left my job, I left everything in New York, moved to Guatemala, and just spent 3 or 4 years just healing, just repairing. And from there, really was able to see pretty clearly what went wrong and the places that could be changed. And in that healing and recovery from that breakdown was really where I started to dream up the Interdependence Incubator and what would it look like for white women to practice freedom so that in them getting free, they could free others, right? Like Toni Morrison says, get free, free others. So yeah, I mean, that's the whole big thing that I just dropped, but that's the basic narrative.
Well, thank you so much for being so strong and courageous to share your story. I think it's so powerful to, share your lived experience and how you really transformed throughout this whole process. And even though it has been challenging along the way, really taking that and really questioning it and seeing how you can do better. And so I would love to know kind of what the foundation is for the Interdependence Incubator. Obviously, I'm one of the members of this cohort, and we just got started. So I'm learning, and I'm so excited to continue to learn from you on how we can heal both personally and as a collective. So why don't you just give some foundations to the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think a huge foundation for me, something that was like the most instrumental, has been really slowing things down, just like slowing them way down to a place where I could take a deep breath, look at where I'm at, what I'm thinking, what's happening inside, what's happening externally, and then choose, like, what do I actually want to do here? What are the decisions? Who do I actually want to be, and how do I actually want to be? And so my sort of like anchor practice that I offer in the incubator is something that I was taught as a teenager by my mindfulness teacher. And I have sort of like taken it and turned it into something that applies to change at the personal, interpersonal, and systemic levels. Because while I really value and I'm so thankful for the therapist and mentor that I have, who was my mindfulness teacher for so many years, is my mindfulness teacher still, like, his work was really still on this like individual level and like healing people as individuals. And if there's one thing that I learned in my burnout and my lived experience, is like, that is just not going to get us to collective liberation. Healing as an individual alone, in your like one-on-one counseling, is an instrument, and it's like helpful and it's part of the work, but it is not the work, right? Like, this is not it is something that is important and valuable and necessary, and right, and it's not going to get us to the vision of the world where everybody is free. Like, working together through these practices, practicing pause, stop, breathe, reflect, choose, pause, breathe, reflect, choose in a collective, these mindfulness practices, slowing down in a collective, that is how we start to shift and change shape as individuals and as a collective. And so I think so there's like the mindfulness piece, the slowing down, the using this practice, and then like having that sort of be an anchor. And then another anchor or pillar is like, we do it together. Like, I'm not doing one-on-one work or any, like, that's not what I'm here for. That's not what the Interdependence Incubator is here for. That work is important. I celebrate and honor the people that do it, both as like practitioners and as people who are seeing a therapist. I see a therapist 101. But what makes this work different about the Interdependence Incubator is that we're doing it alongside each other and being really clear about like practicing, experimenting, trying things on as a collective, and then like experiencing that together as like we're in this together, we belong to each other, let's do these things and hold each other account, like offer accountability and just like be in the process with each other, and then like also be shaped not just by the process, but by being in that process with other white women. And like being that it is an affinity space creates an opportunity for folks to ask questions and say things that they wouldn't say otherwise, right? Mm-hmm. Finally, we're free to just really say and bring the whole self. Like, I have this question, I'm hearing this thing, I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why they're asking this. Like, all those questions that you just sit with and like feel discomfort about and just sort of like ferment in your stomach because you're not sure if you have permission to say it. Like, you can say that here. Like, let's workshop it together. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that at the beginning of each session that you start, well, you said amazing and important things throughout this whole process, but I want to touch on a few things. So you kind of breeze through like the pause, reflect, and the grounding experience that you really use at the beginning. And like you said, you mentioned that, you know, you're feeling something and then you really have to use that to really question what you're feeling and if that's who you want to be. And I know you posted in the circle, you know, are your daily practices really towards who you want to embody? And of course, I'm paraphrasing there, but why don't you first talk a little bit about the grounding practice, the pause, the breath, reflect, and maybe you can even walk us through what that would look like, because I think it's so important for people who, I think people just breathe by and don't really take that time to pause and reflect and really focus on what they're feeling or what's coming up for them.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think a number of things fall into this, right? Like, these conversations are still new to me. Like I'm still figuring out how to like incorporate and like show up in the way that I facilitate when I'm not the one facilitating. Like, what does it look like for me to like fully be the way that I practice when I'm in these types of conversations about the practices that I facilitate? And so I think it's so interesting for me. Like, yeah, of course, like I start every session of all of my sessions, all of the work that I do with a little mindfulness practice. And, you know, we can just go, I'll just do it for you. Like, let's just experiment.
Let's do it.
We could just experience like what those typically feel like. And they can be, you know, we'll just do a couple minutes, but we depends on what we feel, what I feel like, what I feel like the space needs, if it lasts 2 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. So I start every session with this mindfulness practice or some mindfulness practice that's like it. And so what I invite folks into, and I'll invite the listeners, whoever is engaging with this, into that as well, is like, the first thing that I want us to think about is always, the first invitation is always to just arrive to wherever you are. And so whatever that looks like, finding a comfortable position, you know, maybe you're sitting on the floor or a chair, maybe you're lying down, whatever the case is. And then, you know, there's always the invitation to like close or soften your eyes, right? Which I'm doing right now. I think some people, you know, on the virtual world, it can feel weird, but I just really invite folks to close or soften their eyes, whatever is accessible. And then just connect into your breath. Wherever it is, whatever it feels like.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more.
And the invitation here is to just see if you can notice the quality of your breath. Right? So this 4-part practice I offer is pause, breathe, reflect, choose. And when we sit down, when we settle into our bodies, when we arrive to the moment, find a comfortable position, that's our pause. All right, I'm here. I'm in this body. And then we breathe. And it's not just taking a deep breath, although that also can be it, right? But I invite folks in to really notice the quality of their breath. Are they breathing deeply? Is it shallow? Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it forced? Is it organic? And sometimes when I tune into my breath, I notice that I really want to take a deep breath, like the urge, the invitation for my body to just take a deep breath just arrives. So I just take a deep breath. And then, after we've tuned into our breath a little bit, the invitation is to reflect. What's showing up in my body right now? Are there aches and pains or thoughts, narratives, feelings? What's there? And hopefully with practice, we can get to a place where we're not judging what shows up, right? That we're just allowing whatever is there to be there. And once you've done some reflecting, maybe notice some things where there are aches or pains or disconnections or frustrations or feelings, whatever it is. And then the last part is to choose. How do I want to show up to this moment? What do I want to embody here and now? It can be helpful to anchor into your values or goals, call in people you love, with the visions of people you love. Who do I want to be them? And then you just choose that. What does it look like for you to choose the thing, the person, the place, the way of being, to embody your value right now, in this space, in this moment? And then to close out this practice, you can take a few more breaths, deep breaths, counted breaths maybe, or just return to your normal breathing pattern and just notice the inhale and the exhale. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes or return to the space, taking whatever movements or feelings, whatever movements feel invitational to you in this moment. It's the space for you to do that. And so that's the core foundational mindfulness practice that I offer. And it looks like different things each session, sort of what feels like needs to be invited, what invitations need to be offered is sort of how I adapt that experience. But I begin everything with the grounding into this moment.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you start with like, where are you now? arrive here now. And I think that's so powerful for people to really get into the present and really just reflect on where they are. And you always ask that question, and it can be like physical or whatever it is. And I think that's so powerful. And it always like, whew, like after that grounding practice, you're just like, okay, you get to reflect on how you're feeling and get to choose what you want to embody. Another thing that you said earlier that I really want to touch on is, you're creating this brave space. And I love that when we had our first session, you set intentions and you set like how we're going to hold each other accountable. And you also set kind of like, I don't want to say boundaries, but I guess intentions for how, it's going to go. And one of them was the brave space, but can you talk about a little bit more about that framework and why you set it up that way? Because I really enjoyed that process of, you presenting it, but then offering us to, what came up for you and inviting us in as well to kind of help set those intentions.
Yeah, I mean, that really comes from, the decade I spent as a restorative and transformative justice facilitator. Something about the restorative justice and transformative justice process is that the way that we form a circle for the process that we go in is that we start by creating community commitments. And, different circle facilitators or practitioners will call them different things, guidelines, norms, whatever. I call them commitments because for a similar reason that I call it a brave space instead of a safe space. Like I can't guarantee that any space that I facilitate is going to be safe because of so many reasons. Like I don't know what activates people. I don't know how they respond to their activation and how their response to their activation can activate other, like there's just so many variables. We're just these like immensely complicated human beings, and getting together and trying to be in community is messy and hard. And we're going to be pushing up against like all of our different conditioning and, survival patterns and like the things that we have, the adaptations that we've made to survive as far as as humans, right? Both as a collective and as individuals. And each of us comes from a background that I can't predict or understand or evaluate, even in an affinity space, right? Like we may all be white women, but like that term, that identity may mean something very different for the people in the space. And it may come with a story that is completely different from mine. Like my name is Bekah Giacomantonio and I have Italian heritage somewhere, but I don't really, even someone looking at my name and knowing that I'm a white woman can't say like, oh, well, she's Italian American, so this means that, and that. Like, that's just not probably gonna be true for me. Right. So all that to say, like guaranteeing a brave space is I can offer or create a container for people to show up to a brave space. Like I can create a container where we have commitments, where we share a set of commitments about how we are going to show up to this brave space that I'm creating and how we are going to try to show up and practice. Like commitments to me are like, I'm making this commitment to the collective that I'm going to show up, right? And that I'm going to show up in a way that's curious, that I'm going to show up in a way that's generative, that I'm going to show up in a way that honors like the diversity of experience, even in this room, that I'm going to speak from the I, right? And not make assumptions about where people are coming from or what they know or don't know. And I think when we have commitments that ground us, like we have a shared understanding that we're all trying to practice these things. We're all committing to practicing these things, to showing up, to trying to show up in the space that way. Then I feel like that creates a container that people can be brave in, because they're like, you know what, it's not going to be perfect every time, but I know that everybody that I'm in this space with is committing to trying to show up in these particular ways. And knowing that they're trying that, knowing that they're committed to that, allows me to be a little bit more free with sharing my story or showing up in a way that previously felt inaccessible or so vulnerable that it was unsafe. Or so vulnerable, not that it was unsafe, because like everything is unsafe, I just said, but like so vulnerable that it was just like impossible. Like I just couldn't do it, And so I think making it really clear that this is a brave space and not a safe space, because no space can be guaranteed as safe, but I can create a space that I can invite you to show up bravely in, and then create commitments around like have us like commit to things together so that, you know, everybody in that space is trying to show up in a way that is, you know, vulnerable and curious, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, that's a practice for me that's evolved as I've been a facilitator, and is constantly changing, and had changed recently, even because I read Adrienne Marie Brown's Training for Change mini book. And there's an essay in there about community norms and commitments that was like, whoa, like transformative for me. And I'm still thinking about it, because basically the author was like, maybe we don't even need those. Like, maybe that's some concept that's part of our conditioning. So who knows?
Yeah, I love that. I've heard the brave space before. I think I forget her name, but from Be the Bridge was the one that coined that term, brave space. But I never really understood the difference between safe space and brave space. So thank you for sharing that, because like you said, like people can show up bravely no matter what. And that's something that you can guarantee. One of the things that I like that you said, and one of the commitments, is the I and sharing your personal story. And I think that kind of hit with a lot of people, of like sharing their own experiences and making them valid, because they are your own lived experiences. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because, you know, it's almost like your commitment to be vulnerable and show up and share your story, which you don't always feel safely to do. But why did you make that one of the commitments?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because for years I'd heard people say, speak from the I, speak from the I. And it always felt like something that we said as a commitment or a norm or a value that we used as a way to like sort of control people so that they wouldn't talk about others' experiences, basically, or like lump people into a group that they didn't belong to, for the same reason that I just shared. Like, I don't know what your story is or what your experience of being a human in this world is. So for me to say, well, we all experience X, Y, and Z is like, well, like, there's no way for me to know that you also share that experience, even if all of the external factors and cues indicate that maybe we do have these shared experiences. There's still really no way to guarantee that. And so it's best if you just speak from the I, like, this is my experience, or my experience is this, or I think whatever, or I suggest this, you know, whatever the case is. And so in the past, when I had heard people say, speak from the I was like, oh, well, that's them. That's the facilitator trying to control the space so that nobody is like assuming that other people share their experiences. And then recently I was on a call, which was part of the work that I do with this really phenomenal organization called Yes World, which is basically just like gathers groups of people and like has like facilitated dialogue with them. It's this really mystical experience that I can't really explain, but it's really awesome. And someone again was like, okay, we were talking about commitments, and someone was like, speak from the I, but she didn't stop there. She said, speak from the I because your experience is enough. And when she said that, I was like, oh boy, like this is like next level. I had never, like, every time I had heard that previously, I translated it in my head as like an indictment, or like a rule, like, don't talk about other people's experiences because you don't know. And so when my friend at this Yes World meeting said, because your experience is enough, I was like, whoa, like, that's right. Like, my experience, I don't actually need to lump it into a collective experience. I don't need to make it this huge thing that involves other people. Like, my experience of that thing, the way that I experienced it, is enough. Like, that is worthy of being heard. And like, mind blown, honestly, mind blown. Yeah. And I think that this is something that's like so common, and something that we need to sort of like tread with a both and, right? Like, so many things are both and. Everything is both and, I think. Meaning, like, there is no either this is true or that is true. Like, everything that is true and this is true, right? Like, they're both true. And that's like with this thing about my experience is enough and my experience is worthy of being heard on its own. Like, there's a dangerous game that we play out as white women with the social position that we have, where we can think my experience of worthy is being heard at the cost of other people's experiences who are not traditionally heard being heard. And that is just something like, that's not true, right? Like I just said, there's no either or, but here we are living in the world with everything. Anyways, there is a space for everyone in the entire planet to be heard and valued and like recognizing the fullness of themselves. And every single person's experiences is enough on its own, is worthy of being heard, right? And the work for folks with a social position, like a white woman social position, who've been given a lot of privilege and access, and they have been given the mic many a time, is to find which spaces are actually my space to be heard, because there is a space for me to be heard, and my experience is enough and worthy of being heard on its own. I don't need to lump myself into this category and speak for the collective in order to be worthy of being heard. No, I am worthy of being heard today as I am, exactly where I am in my own experience. And
hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today.
that does not mean that I am worthy of being heard in every single place that I exist, right? Like not every table that I sit at needs to hear my experience, right? There are tables where my voice is necessary and valued and important, and like that is where I need to show up and show up fully. And then there are other tables where my worth is the same, like I'm still worthy of being heard, and I need to use that position that I have to make sure that other people are being heard in that moment and not, take up all the space just because I can.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you understand your value and your worthiness and the power of your story and where it can be used. And I love that approach of using the I and really understanding that I love that it is enough. I think that's so fundamental for so many people. My last question for you would be, why now? Why is collective liberation important? Why now? Why should people care? Why should people do this healing and really focus on their own interpersonal, personal, and collective healing?
Yeah, I mean, so many ways to answer that question. One of them is that like everything else we've tried has failed. Like we're all still miserable in our own way. Like everything is still really hard for all of us, even the ones that are rich and famous, right? Like they are miserable also. Like they're unhappy in a different way. And the other thing is like, it has always been true that we are stronger together and that we belong to each other. It has always been true that we belong to each other. It is, and it has always been something that humans have known, right? We have always known that. No matter what ancestral lineage you come from, your people at some point knew that they belonged to each other and that their liberation, to borrow from Lila Watson, was bound up in their neighbor's liberation, right? Like, whoever you are, however you've been racialized or socialized or conditioned, like, you have ancestors in your lineage that knew that they could only be free if their neighbor was free, right? And I am very clear that the myth of white supremacy and the culture that's been built on the myth of white supremacy is a mental health crisis for white folks, right? It's a crisis of many different kinds for folks that are not white. For white folks, this is a mental health crisis. Like, this is us being told over and over again and convinced by racialized capitalism, by systemic racism, by our cultural norms, gender conditioning, the patriarch. I mean, like, insert thing here, like, insert toxic thing here. Like, all of those things have taught us as white bodies that we don't belong, like, have been trying to convince us that we don't belong to each other. Because if we don't belong to each other, then we see ourselves like little individual orbs, like, moving around in the world, and like, we only need to protect ourselves and our loved, like, our immediate loved ones, whatever. And so, and it's not getting us, we're not free. White bodies are not free. I mean, other folks who have been racialized differently than us they are harmed in so many insurmountable ways, but also, like, we are still unwell. And like, you only need to look at like numbers of suicide, like depression, like anxiety, like the numbers show, the statistics are, the data is in, right? And so for me, recognizing, like, really recognizing and realizing that, like, my mental health crises was manufactured by this system of oppression that is like the same system of oppression that is like incarcerating my Black friends, my Black colleagues, like other human beings. Like, it's the same system. And for them, it's like their whole life is consumed by it, right? And there's no exit. There's no exit. White folks can exit, like, we can self-medicate, we can, travel, we can run away from the harm. Folks that are not white can't run away. Like, that's just their world. But we are still running away, right? And so why now? Because we're the most miserable we've ever been as a collective of white bodies, as a collective of humanity. Like, we don't feel good. We have wealth, we have technology, we have resources, we have information, we have all the tools that should make us totally free. And here we are, just like trapped and miserable. And so when I put those pieces together, I was like, man, this is what Black women mostly have been saying forever. Fannie Lou Hamer said, no one is free until the Black woman is free. Well, no, that was the Combahee River Collective. And Fannie Lou Hamer said, no one is free until everybody is, right? And so, like, Black women have known this. They have been telling us. And there is stuff we can do right now to start changing that and, like, living into the collective liberation. And I guess why now? Because we're already late. Like, because all this time, people, mostly Black women, have been telling us, you need me, we need us, like, we all are in this together, like, you won't be free until I am, like, they've known. And we've been, like, distracting ourselves with whatever we've been distracting ourselves, and we've missed out. So why now? Because it's time. It's been time. For a long time, it's been time.
The time is now. You heard it first from Bekah. And thank you so much for sharing. You are such a light to this community and a gift to all of those that you influence and the people that are listening to this. I know that I've learned even more from you over, I don't even know how long we've been talking, but you're such a gift. You're so important for doing this work. And I'm so grateful for you for creating this brave space for people to show up, to be messy, to do the healing work, and really make that change. Is there anything else that you would want people to know about the Interdependence Incubator or any other services that you offer? Of course, I'll link to it in the notes.
Yeah, I mean, the Interdependence Incubator is just a place for white women to practice freedom, to heal and practice freedom. And we just got to keep practicing, and we can't do it alone. It's hard. You can try. You might burn out. You're probably going to burn out. So don't do it alone. Join us. Got this space. We're doing the work, and we're going to keep showing up. So yeah. And then, you can find me talking about all these things on the internet at LinkedIn, because it is, like Haley, my preferred social media playground. I don't have any other social media, just LinkedIn. And I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. The time is now to start healing and making a collective change. And I look forward to continuing our journey of healing and freedom together and going along on this journey with you and the other people that are in the incubator. Thank you so much again for creating this space and showing up in the way that you do.
Thank you. Thanks, Haley.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.